Been very vocal on your blog, Feld Thoughts about the lack of women in tech, and have been chairman for the National Centre for Women in Information and Technology, as you mentioned. Could you summarise what needs to happen to encourage more women to become involved with technology?
Yeah, I think that there's a couple of different very specific things that can be done.
Yep.
The first, and which is what I was riffing on before, is this notion of role models. I think that, there are numerous male role models for entrepreneurs. There are less female role models, and the ones, the successful female entrepreneurs of any age, the more visibility they have, the more they're celebrated for their success, the better. The second is, I think that it's important for us to essentially drive out a lot of the preconceived notions at different points in time.
Yes.
So, for example, if you look sort of younger in the age pipeline, sort of in junior high and high school, there's a lot of historically there's been a lot of parental bias against girls going into computer science.
Yes.
And it's sort of there's a variety of factors, but having people understand that that's not necessarily the thing that's driving that doesn't make any sense is important. So, for example, a lot of parents until recently had the perception that computer science was a very isolated activity. It was to sit in front of your computer and program all day and have no coordination and collaboration. And so there's sort of this encouragement, to young girls to do things that are more collaborative.
Yes.
That doesn't make any sense. That's not really how software is built and how products are built. Sure, there's plenty of time spent, concentrating in front of a computer, but that's no different than many other professional activities.
Yes.
And in fact, the process of developing software today is in many cases, and certainly in the best organizations, very collaborative.
Yes.
And requires very good communication skills, and it can have very robust interaction. Sort of the anecdote is computers is geeky.
Yes.
Is another example of just silly. And if you look at it today, I mean, kids of all ages, from about 5 or 6 on, maybe let's say 7 or 8 on, have computers around them all the time, and there's no real functional difference in use. And so then the idea that girls can't be as effective in developing software and boys makes no sense. But getting rid of those biases early is important.
Okay.
And there's specific things that can be done that will take some time. So, for example, in the United States, the AP computer science class is really not a very effective computer science class. It basically teaches you how to program in Java, not a particularly stimulating activity. If you look at the curriculum, it's a math-centric, sort of theory-centric curriculum.
Okay.
Versus one that really sort of teaches you how to develop software versus learn a programming language.
Okay.
And the kind of multiple aspects of that. So sort of making that kind of work better and more effective, I think, is important. Okay. And then you obviously have all this stuff that works up into the workforce, both in large companies and small companies. Really breaking down the biases. As well as a sort of preconceived notion that, people are better, males are better at one thing, women are better at something else. I mean, I'll give a counterexample. There's a bias that women are better teachers in K through 12 than men. That's not a constructive bias either. There may be more women that are K through 12 teachers than men, but the whole idea that they're better versus there being a more homogeneous mix is actually not helpful. So you mess up sort of organizational culture by having these biases, and the best thing I think people can do over time is just drive them out of organizations.
Yes. What do you see as obstacles for inclusion of more women entrepreneurs in achieving funding?
I think that the obstacles are essentially around the range of stuff we're talking about. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, both positive and negative. Okay. The more women entrepreneurs there are, the more successful women entrepreneurs there will be, the easier it will be for that bias to be driven out of the system, or the more that bias will get driven out of the system, and subsequently the more women entrepreneurs will be funded. It's not just a be funded phenomena, it's engage in the process, right? I mean, you asked me at the beginning, right, what percentage of companies, entrepreneurs that we interact with are women, and it's a small percentage. It's not because we're looking for male-oriented businesses or we're explicitly looking for female-oriented businesses. In fact, we're looking for businesses that appeal to, if you remember from Jason's talk on Foundry Group, we're looking for specific companies that fit within our themes. We don't care whether the entrepreneur is male, female, young, old, and frankly, if they were from Mars, or from Pluto, and they were working on something interesting to us, that would be fine, right? So we're not focused on the gender, age, ethnicity of the person.
Yes.
But interestingly, that population is such that it's very skewed male.
Yes.
I think that what women do to help each other, I think, is important. I think that's true in all aspects of society. Is that if there's a bias in a system, the people that are in the minority should work together to overcome the bias. And more importantly, the people that are in the majority should be very tuned into the bias and should work hard to try to eliminate the bias, not necessarily by modifying their specific decisions, but by eliminating the bias from their decisions.
That's great. Thank you so much. What tips would you offer women entrepreneurs who are considering sourcing venture capital in light of...
I tell them not to be bashful in any way, shape, or form. I mean, the great female entrepreneurs that I've worked with, are come in all shapes and sizes, all different personality types, all different skill bases. The common trait that they all have is that none of them are afraid of being an entrepreneur. None of them are bashful about it. In the same way that the successful male entrepreneurs are not afraid of being an entrepreneur, not bashful. The women that I encounter that are hesitant, that are uncomfortable with being an entrepreneur, that aren't sure whether they want to be an entrepreneur, it's the same character trait that when a guy comes up to me and says, I'm thinking about being an entrepreneur, but I need to make this amount of money and I need to have this kind of stability. My response is, don't. You're not an entrepreneur. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. Just don't try to be something that doesn't map to you. So I don't think it's a unique problem. Again, in the context for women, I think the successful ones are all, confident, aggressive, thoughtful, energetic. But again, on the introvert-extrovert spectrum, on the product to sales spectrum, on any of those dynamics, frankly, sort of education spectrum, they're all over the place within that sample. Yes. And I just encourage women to be themselves and to be articulate about what they care about, be passionate about, and go for it.
Yes, thank you.